All right, man, we're recording. So
Very nice.
And you don't just for background, I just asked Chris. You know, he doesn't really watch podcasts too much, so we're gonna steer you in the right direction here, and you're gonna get obsessed with podcasts. So this episode is gonna be a little bit different than what we've done in the past. And it's I've talked to a couple people, maybe you, and I think I talked to our buddy Steve. That certain episodes I'm gonna have to steer this in different directions to cover a lot of things because I've said this before, and we just talked about it before recording, but I don't want this to turn into a puppet show with lures. Right. I want to talk with dudes and how fishing's affected their lives, and just like I know you've never listened to Rogan or anything, but I'm willing to talk about anything with anybody here. Today, I want to talk about your recovery, the trials and tribulations that you've had, and how you've used fishing as a positive vice to I mean, would you say it's been life-changing?
Absolutely.
The fishing community?
Absolutely, yep.
So let's start with this, and, hopefully this podcast is most of you talking and me listening. That's really what I want to hear. I want to hear your story. No one wants to hear what the fuck I gotta say here.
Right.
And by the way, you can curse, be yourself. It doesn't matter. When I go on YouTube, it says, is this for kids? Is it not for kids? It's not for kids.
Yeah. Yeah.
Before you start, I kind of want to go into what I was about to explain. So recovery and the issues and with it really hit home for me because I've had, and everybody that I know, and probably, I know you know a lot of people, but even before all this happened, drug addiction and, it affects a ton of people, and it
it does.
And you're doing great for yourself right now. I haven't known you that long, but just from the time that I met you to where you are now, it's leaps and bounds. I mean, quantum leaps and bounds, huge. But when I was 18, I had I lost my best friend to heroin, and I didn't even know he was on heroin. So it's an education. This podcast is about educating people on fishing, but this episode is going to be a little bit different. I want to educate people, what to look out for, and just just kind of your path, to where you are now, which is from the pits of hell to what you're doing today, right. Which is awesome, man. I mean, just everything you're doing is great. So, all right, let's. I'm going to pass it over to you here, and just if you can try to start it at square one. These podcasts, like you said, you haven't watched a lot, but they're long form, man.
Right.
All I got is time. So.
Well, I'm kind of used to doing this anyway. Going to the meetings that I go to. So.
Yeah.
I mean, so I really did. I started
1 second. Pull that a little bit closer to you. I'll show you how to do it.
Good.
I'll turn you up just a little bit.
All right.
Sorry.
Better.
Want everyone to hear you.
All right. So I was thinking about on the way up here, and I grew up near Loch Raven Reservoir. So growing up, I was fishing a lot, going out in the woods, and I would be gone for hours and hours, and single mom at home, she didn't think anything of it. She knew what I was out doing, and I later used that to towards my addiction is, we would be out drinking in the woods while we were fishing or whatever. But, I mean, I started early on. I started drinking, about probably 12 years old. I was drinking.
Shoot.
And, that quickly led into, I would be smoking weed. By the time I got to high school, I was actually done. I'd smoked enough weed, and I found bigger and harder stuff that I could get into, which was all those party drugs. And I was always on the go. I got into coke real early.
Like what? I was going to say, can you elaborate on the party drugs?
Yeah. So drinking was always my number one. So anything to let me drink more. Coke, always, do coke through the night, and you can drink all night long. The mornings were horrible, but it was just a hangover. You just
you live for the party at night.
Hair of the dog. You just get another one and you go the next night.
Yeah.
And then after a while, we got ourselves into doing ecstasy and going to parties and acid, mushrooms, whatever. I was really big into being up all the time, and so that was, and this is still in high school. Like, I'm a high school kid doing all this stuff, barely squeaking by. I don't know how I graduated high school, but I graduated high school and never went to college. So from there, I pretty much started working in restaurants. And if anybody has anybody that works in restaurants, it's a real bad place for people like me to work, because anything you want is just walk in the kitchen and talk to one of the guys, and you can find whatever you want in there. Getting off of work, going to bars, hanging out all the time. And, by the time I was 25 years old, I had 3 DUIs. The first one I was speeding. The second one I was swerving, got pulled over. And the last one I actually hit somebody. Luckily, nobody was injured in the accident. But, from that point, I started thinking, maybe there's something wrong. Maybe I'm drinking too much. Maybe I just got to slow down. And then I got court coming up for my 3rd DUI. So I, decided to go to a treatment facility, actually in Hartford County.
What age is this at?
I was 25. So at 25 years old, 3 DUIs, and doing all kinds of drugs. I went to treatment, and while I was in treatment, 28-day program, and I really did it for court, because I wanted to make sure that when I went to court, I didn't go to jail, didn't lose my license, anything like that. Like, if he went to
still do drugs out of jail.
well, yeah. At the time, I didn't even want to be in jail, so I didn't want to think about that. But so I went to this program, and all I talked about was drinking. Later on down the road, I'll realize how important honesty is in where I am today.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to talk about anything but my drinking. So I'm driving.
I guess at the time, do you think that was your biggest problem? I mean, because I guess you had 3 DUIs. You're going, the other stuff is just a byproduct of the drinking at that point.
Exactly.
What's going through an invincible 25-year-old's head.
Yeah, and I'm also 25-year-old from Baltimore County, driving at 2:00 in the morning down into the city in neighborhoods that I shouldn't be in, and getting my drugs down there, because the stuff that I wanted wasn't being sold anywhere around. So, I'm at treatment. I'm talking about nothing but my alcohol. I get out of there and I go into one of the fellowships, and the fellowship is based around drinking.
Can you elaborate on what a fellowship is?
So Alcoholics Anonymous. So from there I chose to go there because I didn't want to talk about anything but my drinking. And I know if you go to that fellowship, it's about drinking. You can't talk about anything else. So that was a good place for me to go, was to go there. And, I was in there for over a year, almost 2 years.
So
was not drinking.
And I hate to keep stopping you, but it's because I don't know much about it, and I'm interested. This information hopefully helps somebody. So the fellowship, is this like the 12-step program?
Exactly.
Okay, and the 12-step program is copy and pasted from place to place to place, right? It's all the same. It's correct. If you were to leave one and go to the next, you're doing the same 12 steps.
The foundation's the same. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Yes. So the where I am now is Narcotics Anonymous. I'm a very active member of Narcotics Anonymous.
Yeah.
You can talk about anything. In the beginning of every one of our meetings, we say alcohol's a drug. So if you're just an alcoholic, and you want to come to our meetings, you can talk about it.
Yeah.
If you're a drug addict and you go to Alcoholics Anonymous, you can't really talk about your drugs. They only want to hear about your alcohol.
Yeah.
For me and all the stuff I was doing, that was where I wanted to be, because I didn't want to talk about that stuff. I just wanted to once I get alcohol out, I won't do anything else. And once I get the alcohol out, I don't, my problem's been fixed. I don't need to worry about anything because I'm not drinking anymore. And if I don't drink, I won't do any of this other stuff. And so, I stayed in there for a while. I'm going to meetings all the time, and the whole time I'm lying to everybody, and
including yourself, right?
Needless to say, that was the number one person that I was lying to, was myself, and it didn't last very long. Not drinking still, and everybody knew, patting on the back, you're doing such a good job, but meanwhile, I'm still stealing things. I'm still, cheating on girlfriends. I'm still doing whatever, I'm still living this cruddy life that while I was drinking, I was doing the same stuff. So, back then I didn't have the insight that I have today that, I was still me. Even though I wasn't drinking, I was still me.
Yeah.
And I was still doing the same stuff I was doing before. And, it was, I can't remember what year it was, but I went snowboarding. I tried to do some, the flying tomato, and I landed on my hip and dislocated.
Is that a real move?
No, that's the guy. What's his name? Sean White.
Yeah.
Sean White. They call him the flying tomato because he's got the red hair.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
I tried to do some stupid move that I shouldn't have been doing. Landed square on my hip. I went to stand up, and my whole body just shuddered because my hip popped back in, and it was bad. It was bad. I was in some pain, and the guy that I was with, he's like, "Well, my sister's got some pills. I can get it for you, and you'll feel better." This is probably almost 2 years since I even had a drink, and so
or anything else for that matter.
Really anything, yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
I took this pill, and I remember waking up in the middle of the night, and it was like, and you stopped smoking too, but
yeah.
When you would drink, and you just want a cigarette so bad when you drink.
Yeah.
That's the feeling that I had. And I just remembered, I was never, like I said before, I was never into anything but something that would keep me up all night long, something that would keep me going. And I finally found this thing, and it made me feel so good. And that just started my love affair with pills, It went from, buying them from this girl. She lost her, she stopped going to her doctor, so I couldn't get them from her anymore. So I started shopping around for doctors. And this, unfortunately, I hear this story. This is the same story. People can close their eyes and think they're, looking in the mirror when I say all this stuff, because this story is way too common right now. Starts with the pills, shopping for doctors. You get hooked on these pills that are supposed to be, they were originally put out that they weren't habit forming, but they're far from that.
Yeah.
So this went on for years and years. Through using, I got married, bought a house, had a son, and through using, I lost my marriage, lost my house, and lost custody of my son. And this is all from using. And at this point, anytime I would go 6 to 8 hours without taking a pill, I'd start getting sick. And the illness that you get, people say it's like the flu. The flu has nothing on withdrawal from opiates.
Yeah. Which is what fuels the chase, right?
Really, it is. You're just scared. You don't want to go through it,
Yeah.
And then, I would tell myself constantly, I got to stop. I got to slow down. I would try to control it. I'd buy a whole bunch of them and be like, all right, this one's for the morning and this one's for the night. Meanwhile, 3 hours later, all of them are gone.
I was fortunate enough to never get sucked into this vortex of absolute hell, but I guess I'm relating to cigarettes, I guess, which is nowhere near that, but I know exactly what you're talking about. When it comes to weaning yourself off cigarettes, you go from a whole pack a day, and you're like, all right, well, I'm gonna pull 10 out. I'm just gonna throw them in the trash can. You create these grand schemes in your head that are gonna fix all, and you can't execute until until you want to fix yourself.
Well, yeah. And, I remember so many times when I was, when I would go to the city, I was going down to buy crack. And that's what I was going down to the city for. Back when I was drinking. And how many times I would take that glass stem and be like, this is the last one. I'd throw it out the window. 4 hours later, I'm buying another one.
Yeah.
I try so many times to just stop on my own. And I tried it so many times, but I kept telling myself, if I just get these drugs out of my body, I'll be fine. And I tried. I said, I'm going to go through these withdrawals. I went 3 days. Actually, I had my wife at the time and I were getting a life insurance policy, and the guy was coming. He said, all right, I'll be there in 3 days. And I was like, well, 3 days isn't going to get this stuff out of my system. Let's make it 5 days. And I knew after 5 days it wouldn't be in my system anymore, because they were going to have to do urine to check your blood and all that stuff. And I remember the fifth day, the guy was walking in the door, and I was so sick, sweating, in the bathroom.
He
like
knew.
It was bad. It was really bad. And I actually took the pill. I had one waiting. I took it right before I had to give, pee in a cup. And it still came back. It still came back. They're like, well, this showed up in your blood. Do you have back problems or anything? And I was like, actually, I do have hip problem, back problem, all kinds of stuff. And then our policies, like, we had to pay so much more for our premium because I have back problems, whatever. But yeah, so my wife left and all this stuff's going on. I went from working at, restaurants where I was making $200-$300 a night, sometimes $500, to working at, I call it Crapplebee's. I was working at Applebee's, making $35-$40 on a shift. And all that did was pay for my next pill. That's all it did. I would show up to work sick. I'd get some cash. People would pay me their check in cash, and I would call my guy, and he would come up, and I would use that cash to get one.
Yeah.
And then I would just work, constantly working. I was working all the time. I would work doubles. Out of 14 shifts in a week, I would work 12 shifts, open to close. 3 or 4 days a week.
Yeah.
Just so I could keep going.
The game plan, I've had these conversations with many people, including you, candidly on boats or wherever I am, usually fishing. The game plan starts in the morning, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's the first thing you think when you wake up.
Well,
What's today's plan?
It's unfortunate. My game plan would start at night.
Oh, okay.
I'd have a little bit portioned out for the morning, and then by the time I woke up, I'd already done it because then my game plan changed. Oh, well, I can do this and I'll be fine until my guy wakes up. I mean, it went from, so just to speed up a little bit, it went from doing pills all the time. The pills I was buying weren't Percocets anymore. They were pressed fentanyl pills, which I had no idea.
Holy shit.
So they looked exactly the same.
That's what the number one killer is now, is
absolutely.
You just get a dusting of fentanyl, and people don't know it, and it kills them.
Yep.
Because once again, I say this every podcast, but I'm ignorant to a lot of these facts, which is why I'm asking. But I guess is fentanyl. I guess once you build up a tolerance to it, you're okay with it, right? But it's what kills people is they don't know that the fentanyl's in there, and there's no way of knowing,
right?
And because you're jumping from this to this, that's what kills you.
Well, what it is also is, there's a batch. And when they take that batch, they're putting a little bit in. So you might be getting a lot over here and a tiny bit here and maybe nothing over here. But that one that's got a lot in it, it's going to just stop. You're just going to stop breathing.
Yeah.
Your heart's going to stop. And really that's what's killing people. And unfortunately, the people that are caught up in this addiction, they're always chasing that high. When they hear that somebody's died from this, they try to find out where that person got it from so that they can go and get high. Well, it's not going to happen to me. I'll get really high off of it. So they're chasing these guys around. So the best thing for these drug dealers to happen for their business is for someone to die off of their stuff.
Oh my
because
God.
The drug addicts that are in the city are chasing after that. They want that.
I would have never thought that. I would have thought the opposite, that if someone got something that killed somebody, everyone's after this dude.
No, they all want that. They all want, where did he get that from? Because I'm going to go there and get it.
Sure.
And unfortunately, too, for all of the Narcan that the police and paramedics and everybody have, people think they're invincible right now. I know at least 5 or 6 people that can tell me that they've been dead 6 or 7 times. But the Narcan just brings them back. Yeah. One guy said he got Narcan 3 different times in one day. You died 3 times in a day. Yeah. And then we keep chasing it because, so I found out, not knowing. So I went from doing these pills that they turn into fentanyl pills, and the pills are $30 a piece for a tiny little pill. And I found out.
Imagine that as a bill you got to pay, a mortgage.
Yeah, well, I wasn't paying any bills.
No, I know what I'm saying, but you were paying a bill. You were paying a death bill.
Well, yeah. And little did I know, by the time and this is where where our story, our common denominators is my buddy Steve that I've known since high school.
Yeah.
And I towards the end there, I was doing these pills, and him and I reconnected over fishing.
How old were you guys when you reconnected?
This was 4 years ago.
Okay.
So late 30s.
Gotcha.
And-
So the last age you mentioned was like 26. So just from 26 to late 30s was just repeat, wake up, repeat, wake up, repeat.
Constant.
Just
Yeah. I mean,
just hell.
when I got clean this last time, I was 41 years old. And I kind of did the math. If you do it, I started at 12.
Yeah.
I stopped at 41. That's almost 30 years. 30 years I was doing something. January 1st, I just celebrated 2 years of being clean. And that's the absolute longest since I was 12 years old that I've gone without putting any kind of substance, mood or mind-altering drug in my body. That's crazy.
Yeah.
I got
when
a
you
son
put things
that's
in perspective,
12 years
yeah.
old. Yeah.
Yeah.
30 years I put stuff in my body.
Yeah.
To keep me going. It started off as being really fun, and then it was, this will get my mind off of things, and then it was, I need this to get through my day, and then it was, I need this to do anything. I need this to get out of bed. And then it turned into, I'm only getting out of bed if I can do this.
Yeah.
So it got really bad. I went from when I reconnected with Steve, like, he didn't know that I was on it. Like you said, you didn't know your friend was.
Yeah.
But Steve reconnected with me while I was in the middle of it. So he didn't see where I came from to where I was. And I put on a good show. He would, even after I told him, what was going on, he said, I can't believe that. You ate more than I did. And I call him Harambe. He's huge.
Yeah. I think I started Harambe.
He's a big guy,
Yeah.
and he would always say, you ate more than I did when we would go out fishing. And this was when he bought his boat. I remember when he called me, he's like, I want to learn how to, rock fish. We got to get all this stuff. And we went out. The first day we went out was pretty bad weather. There wasn't any other boat around, and we're like, wonder why nobody's out here. And we got out to the bay, and
what time of year was that?
It was around June,
Yeah.
I would say. And it was it was bad.
Yeah.
We completely turned around and went back. We
Like
went
wind
out.
bad?
Yeah, the wind
Okay.
and rain, and it
Like
was
worse than the great turnaround with Steve?
It was close.
Okay.
It was close. But
For a new boat driver, it's multiplied by 10.
exactly,
that's
because it was his first time out to go fishing.
He's probably like, why'd I buy a boat?
I
think he still says that.
I even turned around to him and I said, if you don't turn around, I'm jumping and I'm swimming to the point right there. And we ended up turning around. It was
That would have scared the shit out of me having a dude that just
got his boat.
Just got his boat.
It was
I'd be like, dude, this is the stuff that's in newspapers. Yeah.
Yeah, like my buddy Frank that was lost at sea for 4 days back when he was a teenager. Like,
Yeah.
I don't need that to happen. But yeah, I mean, like, so I was using that whole time. I would go out the night before. I knew I was going fishing with him, and I would get what I needed for the next day because I didn't know when we were coming back.
Yeah.
And if I started getting sick while we were
You don't want to be that guy on a boat. Everyone knows that.
What time are you coming back?
Yeah.
No,
You're not
but,
coming.
Exactly. And yeah, so I was using that whole time, and then I'll remember this date for the rest of my life. It was July 4th, 2018 is when I got fed up with paying what I was paying for the pills, and I switched over to dope. And it's unfortunately that's a very popular story. I don't want to say popular, but I hear that so many times.
Yeah,
these pills get so expensive, and
What was the year you said?
2018.
Okay, so yeah, this wasn't long ago, and most people's stories are more compact than that before you switch over to dope, because I guess that's what gets I hate to sound like an old man. That's what gets the kids. It is. They don't have the money, the means to do things, and they've run out of parents' jewelry to sell or whatever, and then it's like, all right.
I ran out of parents' jewelry to sell too.
Then you get to the point where it's I got to take the step to the pros, for whatever that fucked up game is there.
Yeah.
All right, sorry.
Well, it's a scary story. it's going to be weird telling you this story because I'll get a different reaction than when I tell it when I'm at one of my meetings.
Yeah.
So I left work one night and I went to the gas station. And I had my pills. I met my guy first. Of course, after I get off of work, the first thing I do is go meet my guy. And I went to this gas station. Next thing I know, someone's banging on my window. He's like, "You all right?" And I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Man, you've been passed out. I actually left and came back, and you're still in your car passed out." I'm like, "Oh, I'm just really tired." That's my, the story. I'm really tired.
I worked all day.
Whatever. And he's like, "All right, just checking on you." And then he slides me his card and says, "If you need anything, just let me know." Right. So
he was out hunting for
4th of July.
Prey.
I called him. I was at work, and he said, "Walk out the front door of your building." And I walked out, and he said, "Look up to your left." And I looked up, and there was a huge apartment building. He's like, "That's my building. I live right there. I'll be down there in 5 minutes." That close, that fast. Anytime I wanted it, he just walked down.
He was
basically
a pro.
In his lobby. Yeah.
Had a business card.
Well, no, it was written on it.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say, here's my card.
He might be there now. I mean, I did probably put his kids through college.
Yeah.
But yeah, so from 4th of July, still fishing all the time, going out with Steve, learning the bay, like, I was still functioning, I was still functioning as best as I could, not paying bills, still, I don't know how my wife at the time really put up with me, but she did.
Yeah.
I would feed her all these lies. So from 4th of July until the end of December, so 3 days after Christmas, I was actually up in Hartford County doing a job. I had lost 3 jobs in that time period. I started doing my construction stuff, and I had a job up in Hartford County, and it was December 28th. I was driving down 95, and next thing I know, I T-boned the end of a Jersey wall, and it just hit right on my, the front dead center of my car. And I woke up, the back end of my car was up, my hands bent the steering wheel straight forward because I was just out, and my head hit the windshield. I should have been dead. I absolutely should have been dead. I didn't have a scratch on me. I had a little scratch from where my head kissed the windshield, but that's it. I even got in my car and I left. It was
enter religion right there. That's
well, yeah.
That's when you find God.
I mean, yeah. I mean, and it was that's when I told on myself. Not that everyone didn't know that something was up.
I was going to say at that point.
And that's and I told on myself, and my wife at the time, she said you're either getting out of the house or you're going to treatment. And so it was cold. It was December. I didn't want to be out of the house, so I went to treatment. But starting that, so this is where that withdrawal really kicked in. I couldn't get in anywhere until January the 4th.
They want you clean going in, right? Do they drug test you? Or?
No, they don't want you. Most places want you
dirty
on something.
Oh,
yeah,
really?
when you go. But this place was down in Annapolis. It's part of a real big medical system down in Annapolis, and I went there. But leading up to that, the last time I used, you probably seen on my posts when I go and I get that big salad with the steak and the chicken and baked potato we talked about the other day. That's the last place that I used, was in the bathroom of that restaurant. And I go there all the time, and I thought about it last time I went, and I'm like, man, that's just crazy, like how full circle things come around, and it's not anything that I really thought about, but that's the last time that I used. And so to January 4th, I didn't sleep maybe 3 hours in 4 days. I ripped 2 pairs of sheets that were on the bed because I was tossing and turning, and it was really bad. It was really bad. So I did 14 days there. They got me off of everything. By the time I left there, I didn't have anything in my system. They wanted to put me on maintenance, So
what do they do there? I just kind of want to use this for people
Sure.
with your similar story. Like, it's number one, it's going to be okay, but you got to find help. And I mean, how do these places help you?
So this place, so medically, since it's at a medical center, there's nurses on staff.
Yeah.
They check on you all the time. They pop their head in your room to make sure that everything's good.
Which is a huge peace of mind, right? Rather than going to a place that may not have medical professionals there, and they're just going like,
most of
suck it up, and
most of them do, but there are some that you're just there. Some places won't take you until you go through detox. Okay. So they're like Johns Hopkins has a detox at Bayview.
So this place is where did you go? Is it?
It's called Pathways. It's
Pathways.
Anne Arundel. It's down in Annapolis.
Are there places like this everywhere?
There are.
Yeah, because there's one in Havre de Grace too, isn't there?
There is.
Yeah.
There's one there, and there's one in Edgewood. That's the one I went to in 2003.
The goal of these places, like I guess you were saying, I'm sorry to keep cutting you off.
Right.
I'm just, questions pop up, I don't want to forget them. But when you go to these places, the goal is to not get you on the program yet, rather than have you a clean slate to start the program, correct?
So, yes. Unfortunately, nowadays, there's a maintenance drug that's out there. It's called Suboxone.
Yeah.
People are abusing it. And
I had friends in high school that were taking it to get high.
And it's actually, I think it's a worse withdrawal than coming off of pills. Yeah. I went through fentanyl withdrawal this time. I didn't know I was doing fentanyl or that I was doing Xanax, but the pills that I was getting, the heroin that I was getting was fentanyl and Xanax mixed together. And that's what I had been doing. Yeah. That's why I was blacking out all the time. That's why
Xanax.
Yeah. And so going through that withdrawal was horrible. But the withdrawal coming off of Suboxone is really bad. Like, you got to taper off of that for weeks, It's almost like methadone. Methadone, people that are coming off of that are coming off of it for months. Like, they don't just take it away from you. You got to wean yourself down on that stuff.
Yeah.
So I didn't want anything to do with that. There had been times in the past where I was on that drug prescribed by a doctor, and if I went out of town, like I'll go down to Ocean City all the time, like go fishing and stuff, I couldn't go out of town if I didn't have my medication. Like it was a leash, it was a ball and chain.
Yeah, it's a vice. It's just one more vice to keep track of.
Right. And so when I went through this time, they were like, "Do you want Suboxone?" And I was like, "No, I don't. I don't want any kind of. I don't want to be on maintenance at all." And that's it's a real. It's not black and white in my program, but if you're on a mood and mind altering drug, you're not clean.
Yeah.
And that's a mood and mind altering drug, and I didn't want anything to do with it. I'm fed up. I'm 41 years old, and I just can't do it anymore. I can't do it anymore.
Yeah.
Like, I was to the point where numerous times I just wanted to kill myself, like legitimately. Like, I just wanted to end it all. Everybody would be better off without me around. I was a waste. I was a waste anyway. I wasn't doing anything. Everything was about me. If you didn't have something for me, I didn't want anything to do with you. I went from being the socialite, hanging out every night and going to the clubs. Everybody knew who I was, and to being by myself. I'm married. I have a kid. I got a dog, and I'm in my bedroom by myself, door closed, blinds drawn, and because I'm miserable. That was my life. I wake up in the morning. My guy didn't wake up until 9:00 in the morning. I'd get up at 7, and I got 2 hours to be sick every single morning until he woke up. And that's what I did all the time.
Yeah.
I don't have to do that today, which is amazing. But yeah, so going through this place, so they don't just line you up to get you off the drugs. They bring meetings in. So they'll bring Narcotics Anonymous meetings into the place. And so having been through Alcoholics Anonymous before, I knew the meetings, like you said, it's all kind of laid out the same. But I started hearing stories from these guys, from these people that were coming in that I just started ringing bells with me. One of the biggest things was I remember when I was talking to my father, and while I was in there, he said, "So how you doing?" I said, "I feel great. Physically, I feel great." I said, "I got the drugs out of me. I'm good to go. I can go home now." And once again, there's Chris. I beat this thing.
There's old Chris coming back to
I beat
to screw
it.
new Chris,
and I'm trying to lie to my dad already, and I'm trying to rebuild these relationships with people. And so from there, I actually went into a halfway house. I didn't go home. I went into a halfway house, and I'll tell this story just because every time I tell my story, I tell this story. So going into that, you have to go through this. Meanwhile, I'm back up in Parkville, in the area that I live, and it's a place that's around there, and it's called Hope's Horizon. And what they do is they have a center, but they have about 10 to 15 houses, and the people from those houses go to the center for classes and stuff like that. And so I remember I got dropped off there, and I sat there and waited. And the girl at the counter, she said, "You'll take the bus to your house around 12 o'clock, so just hang out, whatever." And so I remember getting on this van with like 5 or 6 guys, and driving down, and I don't know where I'm going. They're just taking me. I got 2 bags of clothes, and we pull up to this house, and I didn't talk the entire time. And the whole time I'm driving there, I'm thinking, I'm this outsider. The girl told me there's 13 guys living in this house. I'm 41 years old. I know there's nobody my age in this house.
Yeah.
But I'm also this new guy coming in. Nobody knows. They got their certain way of doing things, and I'm the new guy coming in to this to mess everything up. And that's the way my brain works, thinking that I'm an outsider already without even giving anybody a chance. And I remember pulling up to the house, and I got out, and when I got there, they must have called and said, "The new guy's on his way." Everybody from the house was on the front porch. Everybody that lived in the house. And 3 of the 4 guys on the van with me were guys from that house. And I got off the van, I turned around to go to the back of the van to grab my bags. The one guy had one bag, the other guy had my other bag, and they're walking them up to the house. And I remember walking up there, and every single guy on that front porch gave me a hug and said, "Welcome. We love you. Anything you need, just let us know. We're here for you." And I felt so welcome. And I hadn't felt that in so long because I didn't let anybody get close to me. I didn't want anybody getting close to me because I felt so cruddy about what I was doing. I felt so bad about robbing, stealing from my mom, stealing from my dad, all my brothers and my cousins or whatever. I was taking stuff all the time. I couldn't go into somebody's house without putting something in my pocket and leaving because I knew I could go to the pawn shop and go get high with it. So I really felt welcome. And the manager of the house kind of pulled me aside, and he said, "Listen, right now you're the most important person in this house, and until the next guy walks in the door. And when he does, it's your job to teach him what all 12 of these guys have taught you." And that's how I live today, because I've been there with these new people coming around. I've been there. I know how you feel. You feel like an outsider, but you're not. You're welcome.
The message is welcome.
I try to, the message is, when we say that at the beginning of every meeting too, the message is welcome. And I try to make people feel comfortable because I was that uncomfortable guy going to my first meeting, not knowing anybody. And all it took was for me to, put my hand out and shake somebody's hand for me to feel welcome. And so I try to just be that person to put my hand out, shake somebody's hand when they're new. And I talk about it when we go fishing too. And I try to just be very present in the program that I'm in Narcotics Anonymous.
Yeah, I can tell. I've taken you fishing before, and you were doing a meeting on the front of my boat.
Yeah.
I'm going and I'll be honest, at the start I'm going, who the hell does Chris think he is? And by the end, I listened to the whole meeting. I'm there the whole time. I'm going this is fantastic. I'm like, well, go for it, man. Anytime you want to come out and fish, cast off the front of my boat, go for it.
Yeah. So through COVID, everything started shutting down.
Which was probably insanely detrimental to this.
It was. We lost a lot of people last
year. This cause. Yeah.
Yep.
Probably more people than would have died from COVID, I would assume.
Absolutely. And so as churches were shutting down, there weren't any meetings. And a friend of mine, and we got together and we said, let's, she's like, "We're going to do a meeting on Zoom. Do you want to be part of it?" And I'm like, "What the hell's Zoom?" Like at this time last year, nobody knew what Zoom was.
Yeah.
And so,
imagine buying stocks in Zoom.
I know. God, better than AMC.
Yeah. Right.
So we started this meeting. We did it every single night, and that's what I was on when I was on your boat when we went out fishing that night. It was on a Zoom meeting. We started it as doing one every night at 7:00.
Yeah, that was COVID fresh because that was like March.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. It sure was. And yeah, and we
You just did it every night.
Every single night we did close to 150 some meetings.
Yeah.
Every single night, and then it just got to be too much. But by that point, we had, we had about 8 or 9 people that were on there every single night. I was on there every night because I was helping to run it, getting speakers, getting people to come in and join in and tell their stories and stuff. And we had all these other people that started. So that's how in Narcotics Anonymous, there's groups. They're called home groups. There's one meeting that I go to, and I make sure that I'm there every single week, and that's basically my home. The people that are in there, and we started that as a group. It started on Zoom, and it's called we call it Talking Heads because you're on Zoom and all you see are people's heads, and so we came up with I came up with a clever name for it, but now it's an actual meeting. Through COVID, we found a church. But when all these other meetings are losing their churches, we found a church. We got accepted into the community, and we have 60, between 40 to 70 people every single week that come in to our meeting, and it's just a great place for people to go.
Yeah. Because this is it's a daily struggle, right? Or even on a smaller time frame than that. Hourly.
It can be. Yep.
Yeah.
It can be. Like today, it was a bad day today for me, and I reach out. I still reach out. I have 2 years, but I try to learn something every single day. I do something for my recovery every day.
Yeah.
Because if I don't,
I see your posts on Facebook.
Right.
This is a bad day, and this is the time I reach back to more or less my training.
Yep.
And dig deep back to your support groups. To I feel welcome again.
Yeah. Yep. And that's what I have to do every single day, and it's not about, and I can kind of, tie it into this whole thing. I
was going to say, I'm waiting for when this ties into fishing.
Well, yeah. So I mean, that's how I got where I am,
Yeah.
And it's not just about me going to meetings. It's not about me reaching out to newcomers. I need to have a life. I'm doing all this so that I can have a life to live, a happy life, a life that I can be proud of. And so, something that I've loved since I was a little kid, like started my story off. I would love to go fishing, and Steve got me into fishing. And I remember telling Steve, "Hey, I'm going to treatment. I'm hooked on dope. I need to go away." And Steve told me, he said, "If I can give you one word of advice, it's do some." He said, "Just do the next right thing," and that's it. It's so simple, but that's what I have to do, And that rings in my head all the time. And Steve never gave up on me. When I was in housing, Steve picked me up to go to a fishing flea market, that was right down the street. And Steve would call me and say, "Hey, I'm going to work on the boat. I'll pick you up and we can go work on the boat." And we would do that, So that kind of got me back into socializing with people outside of that community. He was very integral in me doing that.
Yeah.
And at my first anniversary, him and his wife showed up. He got a custom fishing rod made for me, a Fogel, if I can put a plug out for him.
Absolutely, yeah.
But and it's got my name, it's got my clean date, and it says, for my first mate from the Celtic Ray, which is Steve's boat. But he had it made for me. Then that's the kind of stuff, I didn't have that ever.
Yeah.
Towards the end, I get choked up when I talk about it too, because I didn't have that. I was so hopeless. I thought my life was over. I wanted to end my life. I didn't think things would ever get better. And just by putting a little bit of work in, I did that. And I started to get outside, and we started going once every weekend. We would go fishing.
Sundays.
That's all he was allowed to go.
I was waiting whether it was going to be me that said it or you that said it.
Yeah, but
sorry, Steve.
We love you, Steve. But yeah, so we would go fishing, and that first year, I remember that first day. But the first day we actually went fishing, we caught a fish, and I remember I was like, "That thing's not a keeper," and he's like, "Yeah, it is. We're reeling it in." He's like, "There's no fish on there." We had no idea what we were doing.
Yeah.
and we caught a fish, and like come to find out, like when we started looking at the regulations of where you can fish, where you can't fish, and all that, I don't think that was necessarily a legal fish, but we didn't know any better.
Yeah.
But that's goes back to we didn't know anything.
Yeah.
We barely knew to not go out when it's 30-mile-an-hour winds, let alone anything
yeah,
about
Steve's
fishing.
going like, I got a big boat.
Yeah. And so we started learning more and more, and him and I would talk 3 or 4 times a week about fishing, and it started off once a weekend, and then I started talking to other people and going out fishing with other people, and a lot of these people were people from my past that knew what I was going through, that saw where I was now, and were more than willing to open up their arms and open up their houses to somebody, because I'm doing work, and I'm very public about my recovery.
Yeah.
I am, because I know that there's might be somebody that's struggling, that knew what I went through and sees where I am, and maybe that can give them that hope that I didn't have.
Yeah, well, which is, I'm not done here, but I want to insert this here that, which is kind of why when I was talking to you and you said, I'm thinking about all my friends that can do podcasts, and I'm thinking like I got to stem off here somehow and try to do some kind of good. If you would have saw the podcast we're doing right now, who knows, 10 years ago, 8 years ago, I don't know where I don't know exactly where you were in your life, but that aha moment that you keep talking about, like you get reactions from people or, the fellow NA guys, that they're seeing themselves in the mirror. And, maybe if somebody hears a story like the one you've had today, that they're going like, holy shit, that's me in the mirror. Right. Like, and we're getting to the good spot here. This is where Chris's life turns around.
Well, yeah.
In the positive. And, I guess my relationship with you is through Steve. I met you, and you were just the quiet guy on the front of the boat, the first mate on deck that helped me make fun of Steve. But, when I first met you, I don't think you had a car when I first met you.
I didn't.
And then, you like I said, a good word is leaps and bounds here. And I know your recovery in the last 2 years has probably taken an incredible amount of mental fortitude, courage in a time of pain. And the leaps and bounds you've taken, from that guy I saw not having a car, and I'm looking from the outside in. I mean, you and me are good fishing buddies. We're not necessarily close. I'm unfortunately, if I can help, let me know in the future. But just so people have the reference to where we are, we're fishing buddies, know. And I've seen you go from no car to what was that first car you were driving?
That Jeep.
I thought there was a smaller car in between that.
Oh yeah, that was my wife's car.
Okay,
that Ford, that little Ford.
Yeah. So I'm seeing you go through these steps, and you go to this Jeep that I'm going like, dude, that's the Jeep that my friends drove in high school. Like, and then I went to high school in 2008 or 2009 or whatever, and then now you're moving up to your big boy truck. Your business started off from you're asking me, hey, can I do anything around your house? To, hey, dude, I don't even want to talk to you about, I'll reach out to you like, hey man, I got some work on my deck. You're like, oh, dude, I don't have time for that. which is a good problem to have, man. I mean, and just to tie things back into fishing, I mean, this whole thing is kind of, to me, I'm just kind of recapping what I've taken from this so far. This whole thing kind of, to me, in recovery is not only getting your mind off of it, because it seems like it's always on your mind, correct? It's always the monkey on your back, right? Is that still a term that they use? It's not. It doesn't. It gets easier, but it's always a struggle, correct? And one thing I've noticed about the fishing community, it's just surrounded with fantastic people. Whether it be somebody going through recovery, somebody starting a podcast, or somebody trying to get their captain's license, it's just full of support. Now, there is a bunch of bullshit politics, between some captains and, whether you're a catch and release guy or a keep guy and all that bullshit. But really at the foundation of it all, I won't say all, but the majority of the people are good-hearted people like Steve, who are willing just to take somebody fishing and get out there and we're all just trying to escape something, whether it's drugs or recovery or a shitty day at work, and it's undescribable the drug that fishing is,
right?
And it's it's certainly a vice that we all use, and for you, it's been an incredibly positive vice, right? That was your escape, because I remember you telling me, and we can edit this out because if you want to, but with your ex-wife, she knew that. I remember you telling me this multiple times. I'm allowed to go fish whenever I want, because she knows if I'm on the boat, I'm where I'm supposed to be and not where I'm not supposed to be, right? So yeah, I mean, it's been incredible watching you over the last 2 years just grow and yeah. So take back over here. Sorry, I was just recapping. You put out a lot of information.
I appreciate it. I mean, I'm not as open as I am so that I can get pats on the back. I'm not. I do appreciate it.
Yeah.
But I'm that open so that, because like I said, I know there's people that are struggling. And if I can be that one person, that one, like I say it when I do meetings, if I can just help one person by telling my story through this,
mission accomplished.
The mission accomplished. You know, that's another life. That's another mother that can wake up and kiss her son the next day.
Yeah.
It's like I think about my son, and how many kids we just lost a few weeks ago. We lost a young lady that she had a young son. Who's never going to see his mother again. Yeah. And I don't want to ever hear those stories.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I don't have many vices today. I go to the gym, I like to eat, and I like to fish.
Yeah. I don't know how you still don't really gain weight. Like
I'm at the gym. I'm at the gym all the time too.
You probably skip the gym for a little bit if you want.
I could. That's more taco time for me.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But so the fishing for me, and like I said, it started with Steve picking me up and bringing me to it. I didn't want to go to some fishing expo at a volunteer fire company in Middle River. I didn't want to, but I wanted to see my friend, and that really kind of kick-started everything. Yeah. And going fishing was, like I said, during the week, Steve could only go once a week. I had to start going on other people's boats.
And to find other fishing buddies.
Right. So,
which they're out there. It's one of the only communities, other than, I guess, NA, that I can think of to where you can. That's how I met Steve, was on Facebook. Yeah. He reached out to me because I'm better at fishing them, and he saw I was catching fish. He was like, I want to come on your boat, which, whatever. We were both learning at the same time. I'm joking. But it's, I guess if we're drawing lines between things here, the similarity I've seen between NA and fishing is, like, everyone I reached out to is like, hey, man, you want to fish? It's like, sure. I fished with so many strangers that are just the nicest dudes that are guys I text daily now. Right. And not just Brad, which I always talk about because I texted him through a charter. I'm talking about dudes I met on Facebook that I posted like, hey, I got off work tomorrow randomly. You want to go fishing? Got a buddy, Rick, in Havity Grace. We text almost every other day, like, hey, about the reports or however, hey, how you doing? Is your back still hurt or whatever? And I've just ran into so many people. The third podcast with Scott Adams, I ran to him randomly. He strolled by and was trying to save me from drowning on my kayak, basically. And then, before he left, I'm like, hey, man, let me get your number. In fishing, we're creating these networks too. Right. And it seems like it's all just great people. And that's another reason why I started this podcast. I'm like, I'm sitting on this couch right here, whatever you want to call it, and just a light went off. I'm going like, I'm entering a community full of people who are willing to sit down and have a conversation about whatever. Right. And by whatever, I mean mostly fishing, but then I got guys like you who are willing to come out here and talk, and we're trying to tie this back to fishing, but at the same time, this is almost more interesting than fishing, and like not in like a bad way, but I think this is very helpful, or can be very helpful to a lot of people. Right. I'm only getting, on a good day, 300 views on each podcast, but you do the math, there's probably one in there that needs help. Right.
I'm sure.
Yeah. And that's where I'm like, well, shit, maybe we can do some good here. And, it's super interesting, maybe the wrong word. I don't know what the word is for it, but, I guess it's just like a feel good story, because you went from just total hell to where you are now. Right. And it's just so great, to see that. And, there aren't words to describe it. And it takes a ton of courage for you to do this. You do this on a daily basis. It sounds like you're an open book with just complete strangers, which is it takes a lot of tenacity. I mean, it's incredible. Right. And I don't know how you do it. I really don't.
Well, you say complete strangers, but like just with the community, like you and I, when we first met, immediately hit it off. We were joking, we were making fun of Steve together, but it's how it is. You know, when I go to meetings, they might be strangers, but to me, I still care about them.
Yeah.
You know, and you know that's what I found too is, you know, through there, which ties everything together too. One of my other good friends, who happened to win the biggest fish in your contest, in your tournament, Frank. I met him through, you know, he's praise Jesus. I love Frank. Frank is amazing. Like I said, I had a really bad day today, but I met Frank not just, you know, through other people that I know through some programs and stuff. But they're all like, you got to meet this guy, Frank. He fishes like you do. And I was like, nobody fishes like me until I met Frank.
Yeah.
Frank owns his own business. So Frank is, you know, he'll call me about business stuff. I'm actually doing a job for Frank right now. And he called me. He happened to call me at the exact moment I was literally about to have a breakdown today because of something that happened at work. It just happened that, you know, and there's, you know, my higher power,
praise Jesus.
He puts Frank right when I needed somebody to talk to before I went off. He called me. He called me about the job, but he happened to call me at the exact right moment. Yeah. He's like, when did all this happen? I said, Frank, I was about to throw my phone through this, you know, through my windshield.
Yeah.
And he's like, see, praise Jesus, you know, hallelujah.
Yeah.
But I met Frank, and that you know, what we have in common is fishing. And through that, being that I love fishing as much as I do, you know, I don't have a room with fish, you know, up on it. Actually, I do now. I have a room with fish on it. And a guy that I met through fishing made these cutouts of these fish. I got fish tattooed on my ribs one day, and I looked on Facebook. And the day I got my tattoo, this guy had this post about these cutouts, these wood cutouts that he does, tuna, mahi, and rockfish. And I bought all three of them.
Do you want to plug him? Do you remember his name?
Yeah, Bobby Martin.
Bobby Martin? Is it like, does he do it like out of pallet wood? Because you can tell him a pallet wood guy, right?
He does it kind of like out of the wood, you know, that's there. It's a rough wood.
Yeah.
He routers out the shape of the fish.
Well, this is pallet wood, yeah. Reclaimed, like some people use reclaimed barn wood or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, they're really, really cool. And he does it. It's just something he does on the side, you know.
Yeah.
It's not anything that he really does big. He's got a boat that's on the bay all the time, and a lot of people know the name of his boat.
Is this D's Knots?
D's Knots.
Okay.
Yeah. D's Knots. And he's out catching fish all the time.
Yeah.
You know.
Is he captain?
No, he doesn't.
Okay.
He just runs his own boat, and he takes it out he took it out in the ocean last year, and
I say he catches fish. Seems like a fishy dude.
He'll go live on Facebook, and it just makes me mad because I'll be working, and it'll be like Bobby Martin live, and I'm like, I don't even want to look at it because I know he's pulling in a 45 to 50 inch rockfish off the back of his boat. I'm like, I'm sitting here nailing boards together, and he's pulling in rockfish.
Yeah,
but yeah, I mean,
you're kind of building that path for you now, though. I mean, to the point where you are fishing a lot more because you've put in the work.
Right.
You've started your own company, and you know, eventually you're going to be the guy just going to meet for the bid and and at the end collecting the money. And in the meantime, you're going to be doing Facebook Live while I'm sitting there going like, "Damn it, Chris!" Like,
I know. Up on a roof putting up panels.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you said, like I am getting a lot more fishing in. Throughout last summer, I went offshore 6 or 7 times. I didn't have the best of luck.
I was going to say, you kind of struck out a lot last year, didn't you?
Did.
Were you going
Weather
with captains or like just guys you knew?
Once was a guy that I knew.
Yeah.
And then the rest of them, I've met a whole bunch of people down there. And the one boat that I go out on is the Spring Mix 2, Captain Chris, and you know the first mate on the boat reminds me of you. You know, he's
is he short?
Little redheaded guy.
I'm not redheaded. I got a red beard.
Your skin tells otherwise. But he lives in Virginia. He's a Chesapeake Bay fisherman. He's got all these pictures of drum all over the place on his Facebook page. And, just through going out and striking out last summer, I met them when I just got a trip of a lifetime earlier this year. I went to Florida. We fished from Fort Lauderdale all the way down to Key West. I knocked 8 fish off my bucket list that I always wanted to catch.
8 different species?
8 different. Yep.
Oh man.
Yeah.
I missed out on a trip this year with Walleye Pete just because have you heard of Walleye Pete?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're booking my bachelor party, and I'm like, where am I going to go? And I called Pete, and he's like, yeah, I got a couple dates, and I'm like, shit, and like they're like 3 weeks out. It would have been April like 4th or something like that. And I went to book the flights, and it was like $600 round trip, and I'm like, yeah, dude, I like fishing, but come on, man.
Well, through COVID, the plane tickets to Fort Lauderdale were nothing.
Yeah, at the time.
Like
but then
$150.
once the Florida governor, who I love, flipped the switch, and opened everything back up, tickets just skyrocketed. I just bid at the wrong time.
Well,
I guess.
yeah, not to jump ahead of my story, but the last night we were there in Key West, I went to a meeting. While I was down there
in Florida, you went to a meeting?
Yeah, I went to. So it was on Big Pine.
Okay.
And the way that I found out is a guy that lives in Dundalk, where I go to a lot of my meetings right now. He lives down there, and we kind of connected on one. There's a Facebook page for our community, and I was talking about going to Florida, and I think that's how we connected, was through there. And he said, this is my meeting, why don't you come up? So the last night we were there, we went to his home group. We went up to Big Pine, went to the meeting, and we were talking about fishing and how we struck out the one day. And he's like, the guy right behind you, he's a captain. So, my buddy's like, immediately, like Jabberjaw, he goes right over and he's like, all right, I already got us booked for August. I'm like, wait, what? We haven't even left yet. He's like, I know. So we're at the hotel, and he's like, all right, so what about middle of August? We can get a place at Airbnb and all this and that. And I'm like, man, we can't do it. He's like, flights will be cheap right now. I'm like, I just can't commit to it right now. So a couple days ago, I get an email, and it's got my flight. It's basically my plane ticket through an email, and I'm like, he booked me another flight, so we're going back in August. But I
guess back to those 8 fish, since it is a fishing podcast.
Yeah.
Elaborate on that a little bit, because I've never been to Florida. It's something I want to do. I mean, I definitely have. I'm like, everyone knows I'm at home, but I don't really leave my house.
Yeah.
Other than fishing, and the Chesapeake Bay is a special place in my heart. That being said, fishing capital of the world is a whole different story. That's one place I may leave to go to.
Yeah. So we flew into Fort Lauderdale. We went fishing the next morning. We went out when you're going off the coast. You're not really going off the coast when you go out Fort Lauderdale.
Yeah.
You're 2 miles out.
You can
catching fish.
You can see the shore.
Off of Ocean City, you're 15 to 60 miles out catching the same.
You got to hit the
fish.
Gulf Stream, yeah.
So we had, I was first up, thank God, because we caught 2 fish that day. I caught blackfin tuna, which I never caught before.
Are they little or big?
It's a small tuna.
But they're still like a pelagic fish. They probably pull like a freight train.
Yeah. Well, but we're also using broom handles to bring them in. So,
yeah.
And the captain's like, reel it in. You're having a problem? I'm like, look, I'm gonna enjoy every second of this fish.
Yeah.
And then he screamed that it was a tuna, and I started reeling faster. I was like, I gotta get this on board.
Yeah.
And I got a picture. That was our first day, as I caught blackfin tuna. And then the next day we went down to Amarada. And the first mate from our first trip, we didn't have anything planned at all except for Fort Lauderdale. We knew that we were going out there. But Amarada, we went down. We did an Everglades trip. And
that's what I want to do.
Yeah, it was
skinny water.
It was dope. It was really cool. So the first mate on the Spring Mix 2, Jacob, he's like, you need to go on an Everglades trip. He's like, it's kind of like a trip of a lifetime. Like, not a lot of people get to do it ever.
Yeah.
Do it.
Was it like the push boat?
So he had a boat like that. It was a flats boat, but he didn't have to use that the whole day.
There's the technical term. Thanks for making me feel stupid. It's the pushy boat.
It's a gondola. But yeah, so we went out. we must have gone full speed across these flats, and like these guys, when they're going across the flats, like when I mean skinny water, like you can see that grass and the dirt sticking out of the water. Like they know where to go. Like there's poles, and there's some channels, but there's a lot of times where he was like, hold on, we might slow down a little bit. So, but we're flying through, and we go, and we're in the middle of nowhere. And there's no cell service or
mangroves
anything.
everywhere.
Nothing. Yeah, and we're like pulling into different spots, and it was a bad day because when we went down, it was a cold front coming in and the wind was blowing. So that day we ended up finding some speckled trout. I never caught a speckled trout before.
Really?
Yeah, and we caught so many popping corks, and then another fish I wanted to catch. Obviously, everyone wants to catch a tarpon. But the poor man's tarpon is a ladyfish.
Yeah.
And you catch these ladyfish, and they're all over the place, jumping everywhere. So
How big are those?
I mean, they can get to be up to, I guess, 24 inches.
So they're kind of like the Florida version of a shad.
Yeah. But they're real skinny. They look, like a little tarpon almost.
Yeah.
And we caught a ton of those too. So my second day, I'm down to three fish that I've never caught before. And then we went out. We decided let's go down to Key West. So we drove down to Key West, and had nowhere to stay. We had one night where we had nowhere to stay, and we were like calling all these places. We ended up finding a hotel room, and the next morning we went down to the place we were staying for the remainder of the week, and we were just walking along the docks, and we saw this headboat. It's a little headboat, and it's called the Salty Goat. It's a funny looking little boat, but we went out on it the first day we went out.
Salty Goat's a funny looking little boat.
Funny looking little boat, and we went off the I guess the southern end of Key West, 4 miles out, right on some reefs. We were pulling up yellowtail snappers, which I never caught before. There were strawberry groupers, which are beautiful fish.
Were you using spinning gear? Or?
No, we're just it's just they got cut bait, and we're throwing it out. It wasn't.
Come on,
wasn't
man.
I know it wasn't anything.
It's a headbutt though.
I know.
Yeah,
you're dropping lines, and that's it.
You're still seeing amazing fish.
But the one fish to catch when you're there is a mutton snapper. So that's what everyone's going for when they go out on this.
Is it because of the taste of them?
It's a big snapper, and they fight like crazy.
Yeah.
And within, like, I don't want to say little fish, but it's a big fish in with these like smaller fish, and so that's what all these guys like. There's all these locals that, they post up right on the back of the boat because that's always the good spot, and they're back there and they're trying to catch them, and that's what people were going for. But I got yellowtail snapper, strawberry grouper, which is a smaller grouper, but it's red with like darker red spots all over it. They're the different species of grouper are just beautiful fish. And then I caught the one
Hang
fish.
tight 1 second.
Yeah.
We're at 103. I want to mark this down so you can send me these pictures and I can.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm going to text myself 103 because the problem with podcasts I've had before, I tell people I want to post pictures and then I have to go back and listen to the podcast 4 times to find a spot.
103.
103. I got it. Keep going. I'm sorry.
Then the one fish I really wanted to catch while I was down there, obviously a mutton snapper because they're delicious too, but I wanted to catch a black grouper. Black grouper is a beautiful, beautiful fish. It's like a greenish color and it has these like leopard spots all over it. And I caught one of those and I got a picture of that. That was actually my profile picture for the last 2 months.
Yeah.
And it was awesome, and we decided the next day we were going to go out again. So that day I'm knocking.
Good Lord, dude.
Knocking four fish off.
Yeah.
We fished every day except for the last like 2 days because it was like super windy and super cold.
Yeah.
And we did some bridge fishing, which was pretty cool. We caught some mangrove snapper and some lane snapper, some schoolmaster snapper, and a whole bunch of grunts. And those are just like you look in an aquarium, and these are the type of fish that you see in there. And we're out fishing for them. It's kind of weird, but it's pretty cool. So the last day we went out, it was super stormy. So a guy, there's a local company that makes fishing clothing, and I was head to toe with this fishing, all his clothing on, and it's pouring down rain and waves are crashing over, and I'm like taking pictures of wearing all this gear, and we get out and you see that there's a rainbow and the sun comes out. It's still a little windy, and I'm on the back of the boat because there weren't a lot of people and everybody thought it was too windy to go out. So all the locals stayed on the dock, and all the tourists were out. The dumb tourists were out on the boat, and the captain's next to me. And when you're fishing for these fish, you throw the line out, and you let the fish take it, and you let them take it a little bit before you start reeling.
It's like working a bait runner almost.
Yeah, because it's got a slide weight on it.
Yeah,
and
catfish.
A lot of times the fish will go right in back under the rocks or under the coral or whatever's down there. And so the captain's next to me, and he, I could see his rod going down, and he went to reel, and it got snagged on something. And he's like, if this ever happens, just open your bail and let the fish swim away. So he tried for like 5 minutes and nothing. So he ended up breaking off. And I'm like next to him. I throw out like probably 10 minutes after that. I feel the tap, and I'm like, I go to reel it in, and I feel that it's snagged, and I open my bail, and I could see the line going out, so the fish was swimming away, and I reeled it in. I actually had caught, my hook went into the slide weight of the captain's line, and I
caught his fish.
I caught his fish, and it was a red snapper. It was like the last fish that I caught.
How did that not come off?
I have no idea, but I said,
what?
I said, what? Are you using red braid? And he goes, yeah, why? And I was like, I got your line right here. And it was in the weight. My hook was inside the weight, and that's how I brought everything up.
If you would have lightened up tension a little bit, that would have, what the hell?
Well, I think because it was snagged, the hook dug into it more when I went to pull on it. So, I don't know.
Dude, but that's insane. Crazy. That's almost crazy. As insane as seeing you hook up on 2 stripers on 1 X-Rap.
I know, on that X-Rap that one day. But that's what it is for me today. And the whole reason you have me on here is, because of my story. And I'm always looking for that like adrenaline. And we joked about it at the end of last year that the tug is a drug, but it is. Yeah. It really is. And that fishing trip was a trip of a lifetime. It really was. I've been thinking about fishing in Florida my entire life, going offshore, doing Everglades stuff. And I got to do that this year. Yeah. And that's because of where I am.
Because of you. I mean, you can have pushes from other forces, but really this whole podcast, this whole recovery that you've talked about today is your doing, man. And huge congrats to you. That's, like I said, the word for that is fortitude, dude. I mean, just that takes an incredible amount of just mental stability to just push through all that. But I mean, it looks like it's paying off dividends, correct? I mean, you seem very happy, dude.
It is. Some stuff that's going on in my personal life, but I've been through a lot, very recently, but I can't let that get in front of me, as much as I love fishing, as much as and it's funny to say, but I love working. Because I love what I do.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have started wouldn't have started my business if I didn't. I love looking at the end of the day, looking back behind me and being like, I did that.
Hard work pays off. Yeah.
Right. And, I love that stuff, but if I put any of that stuff, if I don't think about my recovery before any of that stuff, I'm going to lose all of it.
Yeah.
So I don't want to go back to the old Chris, and even though I said it many times, today was, if I just get these drugs out of my body, if I just get this out of my body, then I'll be okay. Well, it's been a lot more work than just taking the drugs and the chemicals out of my body. It's been a lot of work on me. The reasons why I go back to those things, and there's times today where I'll obsess over, things. And if I start obsessing over things, I know that, I need to take a step back and look at what am I doing or what am I not doing?
Yeah.
So that I can stay on my path, because I'm always looking to learn something new, but I'm always looking to keep moving forward. if I stand still,
Just do the next right thing.
Standing still for me, exactly. Going back to it, do the next right thing. If I have to think twice about something, I probably shouldn't be doing it. You know.
Yeah.
But if I'm standing still, I'm moving backwards. That's just for me.
Yeah.
I need to be moving forward because, my addiction will catch up to me. And my addiction will get in my head and tell me that I'm not good enough. You can just have one. You can go out and have a drink. And if I'm standing still, it's going to catch up to me. So I need to keep bettering myself.
Yeah.
I need to keep doing the things that I love to do. Eating tacos, going to the gym, my salad.
I eat because I'm fat, and I'm fat because I eat. Or no.
That's the other thing is Steve will get mad at me. He's like, I can't believe I see what you eat. How do you eat what you eat and you're not fat?
Well, you work all day, you go to the gym.
Constantly working all day, and I go to the gym all the time, and I'm not eating. Well, I can't say I'm not
So you
eating
probably have
junk,
a little bit of
but I
decent
do eat
metabolism
junk.
too.
You
eat junk 100%.
Yeah.
I've seen you down, but what is it? Peanut butter pretzels.
The peanut butter pretzels, but the Uncrustables.
And then the Cheez-Its that taste like buffalo. Like you offered them to me on the boat last time. I'm like, dude, I'm kind of on a diet myself. I probably shouldn't be dipping into buffalo wing Cheez-Its, although they look good.
My son got me on Uncrustables.
Oh man, oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, you ate a couple of them.
You're like you just put 6 of them down. I did eat 6 of them on my way up 95.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I also went from I've never weighed over 150 pounds in my entire life until recently. When I went into treatment, I weighed 118 pounds.
Good Lord.
That's how bad it was.
Yeah, and that's a whole separate problem in itself, because your body's not healthy at 118 pounds at all. You're completely deprived.
Yep. I was living off of gummy bears and Monster. That's it. I didn't have money for food. I had to get the next one.
Yeah.
And I was at the gym the other day, and I weigh 192 pounds now.
Good
and that's that's it's a lot of work.
See, most people be like 192 pounds. You're like, oh, this is awesome.
Yeah, I know, right? Like I people are talking. They still like. My buddy's like, I just dropped 18 pounds. The guy that works with me, Steve, he calls himself a fat ass. So that gives me the privilege of calling him a fat ass too. So when he's like reaching for his hammer and he can't reach it, I call him a fat ass.
Oh, God.
He does it all the time.
Yeah.
It's so funny. He's like, I'm too fat. I can't wear this thing. But he told me today, he's like, man, I just dropped like 18 pounds. And I'm like, I'll take it. Like, I will take it.
Yeah.
Because I know, like, right now it's like I'm into a little bit of, fitness and watching what I eat and making sure that I'm getting enough calories and proteins and stuff. Going from 190 to 200, that's like a big hurdle to get over. So I'll take all the weight. I'll take it all. As many Uncrustables and tacos as you can give me, I'll take them.
I hit 200 like, I don't know, 6 months ago. I finally dropped back down to, I was at 185 and I've been teetering. That first 15's easy. I was just going on walks every night and cutting back on drinking and whatnot, because drinking is just a ton of empty calories. And I mean, you've seen me and Steve on the boat. It's like, the amount of calories that were going into us on a fishing trip was insane. But I'm on my own weight loss journey. But yeah, if you want some of mine, I'll
take it. I'll take it.
Clearly have
it.
Yeah.
One of the other keys, one of the other big things, part of my recovery too, that was really important to me was, and that wasn't anything I was looking for, but actually it was the first summer that I got clean. Steve gave me keys to his boat. Like, if anything ever happens, you got keys. He went away and he goes, you can take the boat out. That's kind of like when you and I went out that one time. He's like, I'm going to send somebody else that knows boating out with you that first time. And that was cool because we got to go out and we went out and caught a bunch of fish on Steve's boat. And Steve was down in Carolina getting
Did we
skunked.
catch that day?
Yeah. And he got skunked.
Your
buddy came out with us.
Trying to remember which one. Oh yeah. My coworker. Yeah, it was super hot out. Yeah, just blazing hot.
It was.
Yeah.
But we did catch fish that day.
Yeah.
And then Steve was in Carolina, and he got blown out of one trip. It got canceled, and then he went out and got skunked or something on the next one. And
I love Steve to death. He's a good friend. He sounds like he's a great friend to you.
He is.
But I love rooting against him, and he asked for that every single time. Like, no, it's tournament. He was like,
I would love against you too.
I know. Yeah, he goes, I would love to come to your backyard and catch a bigger fish than you. And I'm like, I don't care what you do in my backyard.
If we can go on a Steve story.
Go for it. Yes, yeah, absolutely.
The fish, I wasn't on the boat when Frank caught that fish.
Mm-hmm.
I was at work, and that was another one. And I was having a bad day that day too, and I was in the line, 45-minute line at the dump, and I get a picture from Steve and Frank.
Was Steve holding the fish?
Steve and Frank.
What man holds another man's fish?
I said, the first text back was, whose fish is it?
Because Steve is willing to take a picture of a fish somebody else's.
And then I said, your timing couldn't be any worse, because I'm having the worst day. And the day before, we had gone out, and you know the story, but having been there, the rod goes down. I'm on the front because I'm thinking we're not catching anything. We're going to go out to the flats and start throwing some jigs. Yeah. So I'm tying my leader on. I'm sitting up in the front of the boat, and as where I usually am, front of the boat, and rod goes down. Frank cuts the engine. He's like, grab the rod. Frank's reeling all the other ones in, and he's like, get the net. Like, this is a big fish.
This is what Steve's reeling, or you?
Steve was reeling.
Okay.
And I'm up front, and he looks back, and he's like, you're going to get the net? And I'm like, the fish is... Okay, I'll get the net. Yeah. I'm thinking, like, there's no reason to run around, like, get crazy.
Was Steve losing his mind?
Steve loves the...
He gets like
the tug is the drug for Steve.
His voice gets all high.
It. Oh my God. He loves it. But so he's reeling the fish in, and I get the net, get the net out. And I'm thinking, I knew it was a decent sized fish. And then until it came up from the muddy depths, and it just came up sideways. It wasn't like it was head first. You couldn't see the tail first. It just came up sideways, and the length of this fish was unreal. Everybody says never seen a fish that big. I've never seen a rockfish that big.
Yeah.
In person, never.
Yeah, I've seen Steve flip out over a 30-inch. I can imagine what a 50-inch was.
And I didn't see Frank's firsthand, but even Frank was like, I think that was a bigger fish. But I went to the fish came around, went back around the boat on the other side, and I was there with the net, and I said, all right, I'm getting ready to dip, talk to myself. I went to do it. Net didn't even touch the water, and the fish was on its side, and it head first started going down.
Broke it at the lure.
Broke it.
Yeah.
And everybody just stopped. I mean, there was probably 45 seconds to a minute of just silence. Nobody even moved. We were just our jaws were just down. Like, that was a big fish.
Yeah, we went out.
Big fish.
I think we went out a couple of days later. It was like a Sunday morning. It was just like... The forecast was just dog shit, and I'm like, I go out to breakfast every Sunday morning. It's like my time to just get away from work. I mean, I don't even take Jess with me. I go out there, just Google shit on my phone for fishing or whatever, just clear the air. And I just swing by the point here in town, and I'm looking, I'm like, this water doesn't look bad at all. Like, what am I doing? Like, I'm like, and not only that, like those overcast days, sometimes they produce magic. So we go out, and we had more or less struck out. Like, did we catch a couple when you were with me this year?
Yeah,
like a couple, but nothing. No, you went out after.
I went out after that day because you were with your buddy.
Correct, but the day before, I mean, it was.
Yeah, the day before was bad.
Did we catch one? We didn't catch anything.
Nope.
Okay, so that's pretty much what we had been getting. Like
we did. I had a little diaper striper that came up because Brad was right up in front of us.
Yeah,
he's left and right. Doing what Brad does. And I missed it. It flopped off right at the boat, and then your buddy caught one.
Sean.
Yeah. He ended up catching one.
Yeah. So, but that's the days we had been seeing all year, and then finally we go out, and I'm like, the forecast is. I don't know why it's so bad. We go out, and then the forecast came to fruition, and these winds picked up. But as soon as that wind picked up, the fishing started going nuts. And I was catching like mid-20s, and my buddy Sean was just hitting big one after big one, like large, like high 20s, and then he finally hooked in like a 35. He was shooting for third place in the tournament, which didn't take much. I mean, I think beating 24 would have done it. And he hooked into like what would look like a 35 or 40, and he was fighting it. And might I add, he's fighting it on like one of these little X-Rap 10s with super light hooks. And we found out that the trim tabs on my boat are razor sharp because he followed it all the way around to the back of the boat and snapped off. Same feeling as when you guys lost your fish. It's just like, oh my God, just like completely deflated. And then I was like, all right, man, like, let's go in. Like, it's shitty out here. We did this like probably 10 times that day. Like, get deflated for a minute. I drove a half mile, and I go like, this dude, this is what we live for. We turned around, we go back out, and we just kept fishing.
Right.
And it happened like 10 times. So we finally hooked into the 40, and I don't know if you've ever seen the net on my boat. It's more or less a trout net.
Right.
We had to fit this 40-inch rockfish. Like 2/3 of the fish was hanging out of the net.
Scary.
It was absolutely a nightmare. It was a nightmare, but just a beautiful moment. That was his PB, which if you're around somebody when they get like an actual PB, not like, hey, I got my PB 23. Like,
right.
you know, when they break the high 30s and finally get their PB, it's unreal. What is your PB so far?
38.
Well, yeah, so that's a formidable fish, though.
Yeah.
I mean, up until last year, my PB was a 29, you know, which isn't shit compared to most people. Are like, oh, that's silly.
I unfortunately caught mine on a charter boat, so
Yeah,
I didn't get to fight it much, but
Yeah.
still.
Well, if you keep staying, you know, like me and Steve kind of started around the same time. The three of us did, and I mean, everything's kind of full circle here.
Yeah.
But we've all progressed leaps and bounds from what I can tell. We're starting to learn weather patterns, when to fish, where to fish, and we're also expanding our territories this year to larger and unspoken of places.
I can't wait.
Yeah,
I can't wait for that
I know,
trip.
dude. I know, and it's not far off either. So, yeah, hopefully, I was going to say this is like, I would consider this part one of the Novak podcast. Maybe, after these trips, I'm going to do some videos too. I constantly am thinking on my way in from work, like, what can I do with this podcast or what can I do with my video channel? Because the video channel's kind of died off because it seems like I have some kind of superstition where I just want to leave the GoPros at home, and I got to stop doing it. I just got to take a GoPro out for every time I go out. But what I'd like to do, and maybe the next podcast we'll do a you, me, and Steve with the videos from our trip. Hopefully we catch. It depends on the captain. Yeah. Unfortunately, the captain's going to be me. If we catch, do I'll load up the videos and create a YouTube video that's edited and everything. We can kind of sit back on the mics and watch it on the projector.
Yeah, that would be cool.
And kind of do some narrative and tell our stories and make fun of Steve for an hour and a half, 2 hours. So
yeah,
I think that'd be pretty cool.
If I could throw one thing in, I don't know if you want to wrap up or whatever, but when I first met you, and I appreciate what you've done for me too. Like, it's not just, me being Steve's friend. I think we've built a relationship from everything too. It's taking me out, calling me to come up in this area that I don't get to fish much, and catch some fish up here. But we booked a trip with Brad last year. And when we went out, we were all in a little group chat, and Brad's telling us what they're biting and what they're hitting on this and that, and the different colors. And you and your buddy and Steve are like, yeah, I got this and I got this weights. And like, at the time I had nothing, I had nothing. I had a fishing rod, and it was actually my son's fishing rod too, that I bought him for Christmas. And I had nothing at all. And I kind of made a joke like, well, I don't have anything. I got some hooks and some fish finder
bobbers.
rigs. Yeah. And you guys were like, we got you. We got you. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about anything. We got everything covered. And I appreciate that, like, because now I have the opportunity to be like that to somebody else. Yeah. And that's kind of how I live my life today, is that people did stuff for me, so now it's my job to do something for the next guy. Yeah. Pay it forward.
And I don't know if you notice it, but that's most people in the fishing community. I've been fishing with a lot of people that my tackle box, it's a simple gesture, and it, like you said, it translates to everything. Just, I guess, doing the next right thing. But you're welcome, by the way. I didn't even think about it. If somebody needs fishing gear or anything from me, I'm willing to help where I can. But you saw it when we were out with Steve Solonik. He came out and he was tearing me a new asshole out there. I'm going like, dude, wait, and to be honest with you, the new boat, knock on wood, is I haven't done well on it for myself. I've seen other people have great days, and I don't really care because I enjoy taking people out and seeing and putting them on big fish and being like, that's a win for me in some way. But one point in the trip, he goes, dude, open my tackle. Like, I would never go into somebody else's shit. It's like going like into somebody else's fridge and grabbing whatever. He goes, my tackle box is yours. And I'm like, awesome, because you have a lot of great tackle. Yeah. And Steve's the same way. He's loaded up. Steve Harambe. He's loaded up, to the gills, no pun intended, with gear and willing to help. But anybody in the fishing community has been like that.
You even got something from me that day. I think you got one of your.
Did I get mine back?
From last year?
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah.
But
But
it's more than just. It's the gesture because
Yeah.
of where I came from.
Yeah.
Like, I always felt no one wanted me around. You know,
yeah.
and I told myself that's what I would tell myself all the time. And just that simple gesture, you know,
Yeah.
it's not really about the fishing gear. It's just the gesture of, you know, like these, you know, maybe I do fit in with some people.
Oh, yeah.
And this community, you know, and a lot of the people that I know also know Brad. So I get to talk to him here and there. So it's like, you know, it's so weird. Like, you know, social media has brought all these people together. Steve was selling fishing rods and somebody's like, yeah, I want to buy them. It turns out it was a guy that lived up the hill from where he lived. And that was,
Julian.
the old Julian. We love Julian. And then, you know, he met Chris.
Yeah, Chris White.
Well, Chris Jenkins.
Oh, yeah,
He
yeah.
met him through social media. But
God, I
then
wonder where Chris Jenkins is these days.
we talked to him recently.
You did?
He caught a 50-inch the last night of that we could fish
On a
for
kayak?
rockfish from shore.
Oh, good for him.
a
He's a
monster.
fishy dude.
Monster.
Also
He
a
is.
crazy guy.
He is crazy.
I don't care saying that publicly because I'm pretty sure he knows that.
He does, and he loves to let people know that he's crazy.
Yeah.
He the famous line was when we were fishing, real quick, Chris Jenkins story. He's on the front of the boat's always been for Chris's.
Is this
It's
when I
either
was there?
Chris Jenkins or Chris Novak or Chris White.
Yeah.
I don't know if you were there or not.
Was this
but
the Trump flag?
Yes.
I was there.
That was great. And so just so everybody,
Yeah.
So he's on the front like casting, and we're chasing we're chasing the birds, and like there's fish, we're catching fish all over the place, and he's up there, and this guy with a Trump flag, he's the only one trolling in the whole within a 10-mile radius, the only guy that's trolling. And he's, you know, the birds land, we pull up, and all these boats converge, you know, start throwing on it like what happens, you know, in the summertime. And this guy just comes, you know, going straight through where the birds are, and all the fish just disappear. He does it like 3 or 4 times. And Chris says, he screams over to this guy, and he said, "You're a piece of shit. Fuck your mother. I love your Trump flag, but fuck you." And he goes, "Somebody give me a 2-ounce weight." And I was like,
And
no,
we were close enough to on the water. You can hear people.
Oh, yeah.
It wasn't. He was talking distance to this guy.
Right. But he screamed it.
Yeah.
And then he said, he looked around.
We all
and he
just
said-
go like this.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
He says, "Hey, somebody give me a 2-ounce weight." I said, "You're not throwing a fucking 2-ounce weight at that guy."
I think
No.
he would have done it.
Oh, I know he would have done it. He was serious.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like just the characters, and then I think Steve was selling something else, and this guy's like, "Yeah, I want to buy it. Where do you live?" He's like, "I live on this street," and he goes, "I live on that street," and that's, you know, Chris, you know, the Chris White, and he's, you know, he's from the South, you know, he's from Carolina or something. So we take him out, and he's like, you know, he's a fishy guy too, you know, and we got him on some rockfish, and he brought his son out. I brought my son. My son comes fishing with us all the time.
Yeah, I met him,
and
he was there for the day you got 2 stripers
yeah,
on the one lure. Yeah.
and he outfishes Steve and I every time because he goes up into my spot,
Which I love to see though. Yeah, that's great there, dude.
And he last year he learned how to take the hooks out himself. He learned to walk the fish to the back of the boat from the front, so that he's not, you know, trying to boat flip, you know, these 25-inch fish over the front of the boat, which you probably can do anyway. But
you can do, but it may end up in a hook in the face half the time.
right. And you know, it's not Steve grabbing the fish in the pliers and taking his fish off anymore.
Yeah.
He's got his own set of pliers now, and he
Which
can
is
take
good
it
for
off.
you. Yeah, 'cause
Which
you
is
don't
great.
Have to stop
Well,
fishing.
I don't. Steve does it. Steve does it.
Good for Steve then.
But Chris brought his son out, and I just talked to Harley the other day, my son, and he said, "Yeah, I remember Chris. He brought his son out that one time, and I didn't even remember, but now that's a bond that my son and I have.
Yeah.
Is fishing, and you know, fishing has brought all these people into my life, you know, in the last 2 years. And my son gets to see that.
Yeah.
You know, my son saw me at my worst.
Yeah.
You know,
and he probably saw I mean, I guess he was fairly young there, but I mean, I'm sure he's seen the rebound too. I mean, it's all about we keep saying this, who you surround yourself with. And it's, no matter how good you are at hiding it, people see who you surround yourself with. If you surround yourself with bad people, you're going to do bad things.
Yep.
Every bad decision I ever made in my life was because I was surrounded by the wrong people. And now, I'm sure you're completely comfortable taking your son on any fishing trip, because, for the most part, because, you're going to be putting him in a situation with some decent people.
Right.
And good role models and mentors. I would take, I don't have a kid, and it's hard to say or speak on it, but I would take my kid out without regret to anybody I fish with, and know that these are all decent people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. I feel comfortable. My wife at the time felt comfortable me being out there because she knew it was good for me.
Yeah.
It's like meditation for me.
Yeah.
It's good for my soul to be on a boat. I told you this before too, like catching fish to me is a bonus.
Yeah.
Now, when you go offshore 6 times and you catch one bluefish,
that's hard to swallow.
I need a little bit more than that, but
Yeah.
it's a bonus for me being out in the water. Like especially up here, like the sunsets up here when we're coming back in are just unbelievable.
Yeah.
They really are.
Yeah.
If
only there was more fish here.
I can watch a sunset over Dundalk, over the ship plant in Dundalk. Nothing
Right between the titties.
nothing can make a ship plant look more beautiful than Mother Nature, like the sunsets. Just being on the water, like you said, like there's just something about it. And it's a good place for me to be. My ex-wife, she knew that. And my son's mother knows that. She knows that when we go out, I'm not putting my son into a bad situation.
Yeah.
I put my son into a bad situation. I used to take my son when I would go buy stuff, you know. I'm still trying to forgive myself for that kind of stuff, but doing the small things that I do with my son now, taking him fishing, it's very important. I think he's got a bigger fish on Steve's boat than I do.
That's good.
Yeah, and he loves it. He's like me too. Like we can go and catch mackerel all day long trolling, but he wants a rod in his hand and he wants to cast to those fish because he wants to be the person tricking that fish into biting a lure instead of the boat dragging it. Yeah.
Steve cannot help himself from breaking off Plan A and trolling. It's been 10 minutes, guys. Get the planer boards out.
Yeah, he said something this year, and I
sorry, Steve. I know we're dogging on you, man. We love you.
I know this isn't dogging on him. This is okay. So this is a goal.
We all do it.
I'm gonna just in my head I'm gonna say that it's a goal that he put out for himself this year. Is that he's gonna go with certain lures already tied on, and he's gonna stick with those lures that are already tied on.
It's impossible with the snags, right?
I've never, but I've never. I don't think I've ever, like, if I'm throwing a lure and it's working, like he's also the kind of guy. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, if something's working and someone's not catching something on his boat, he'll give them that lure and he'll go and tie another one on. Like that's just what he does.
Yeah.
I mean, the one day last year, and you were on the boat that day, was we're catching fish all over the place. Steve's catching fish and handing the rod off to other people. And he catches this one fish and he pulls it in, throws it on the deck, throws his rod out because there's still fish everywhere. He goes to set the hook and slips on the fish that's on the deck, falls on his back, still catches a fish. It's just crazy. Like some of the stories I've had some of my best days in the last 2 years on that boat with you and Steve and some of the other guys. And I don't know. I'm just ready to continue doing this. Like it's good for me. It's good for my soul to do this stuff.
Well, I was trying to squeeze this in earlier, but Harley's welcome on my boat anytime, man. You and him come out. I just want to take people out. Obviously I'm working towards my guide's license, and I'll get there eventually. But until then, take advantage of the boat opportunities.
I don't mind that drive to come up and get on the boat.
Yeah. Well, fortunately for you, the reason why I bought this boat is to get probably closer to you guys. I need to. I've realized that being mobile is the only way to really catch fish all year. Up here, it's unfortunately not what it used to be. You used to be able to catch fish all year. In the summertime, even when the months are shit. The stories are you could always find birds diving and catch low 20s, to mid 20s always. But I don't see that anymore.
Yeah,
it's like a good day up here in the summertime is 2 rockfish, two mid 20s, and you got to work for it and burn gas. So until then, if I'm boating up here in the summertime, I'm just enjoying the sunset.
Yeah.
You know?
Last year was, it is finding the fish. It's really finding the birds, and then you find the fish.
If only we would have known from day one, like, just find the birds.
Right.
Just find the birds.
Well, last year was, and Frank went with us, so Frank's showing us all these spots that he catches. He was catching bait, and then he was going to these rocks where he usually catches fish. And we didn't catch anything.
Yeah.
We're like, you know what, forget this. Let's go to our spots. We have this one spot that we always go to. It's near the channels.
Yeah.
And we go to the spot, and the screen just lights up. And we're catching fish all over, and we're catching fish left and right. We forget that we have two, live lines off the back of the boat, and we just don't live line. We only did because that's one of Frank's big things is he loves the live line.
Yeah,
we got 2 fish on those, and so I put the rod, I put my rod down. Steve puts his down. We reel those fish in. Just the lures dangling, caught fish, and that was one of those days where we were just like,
you couldn't miss.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then the very next week. It wasn't even 6 days later. The entire place was just full of boats everywhere.
That's social media.
And it's just right.
Unfortunately, social media connects people, but it also there's a lot of chatter.
It does. But there wasn't anybody around. It was us and Frank, and that's it.
That's what I love is being that first boat there, and then just telling everyone on the boat, shut the hell up.
Yep. And then I went out on a charter. Not 2 weeks later, I picked all my friends up in Dundalk. We drove all the way down to Annapolis. We get on the boat, take the boat from Annapolis.
And go exactly where you were?
All the way up to that spot. And I was like, you can almost see my friend's house from here.
Yeah.
Like, it was crazy. And the very next week was one of the weeks Steve was out of town, and I took his boat out. We went down there, and same thing, man. Like, the fish didn't move very far last year.
Yeah.
But learning that they do move. Like you said, I think one of the other podcasts you were talking about, I'm so used to going to a certain place and throwing my lure because I know there's fish
finding
there.
your favorite underwater structure
Right.
and going there. And back in the day, that was totally fine. Even though the fish moved, you'd have resident fish on these structures, and it just seems like that's not the case anymore. Right. They're not there in numbers anymore.
Well, I mean, like growing up on the reservoir, I know that there's a tree down there. I'd throw to it. There's places. There's a place called Turtle Rock in Loch Raven Reservoir. Everyone knows about it, and there's always fish on it. But you go out here, and it's not like that. It's not like that. You got to you got to put the work in. You got to put the work in. You got to get the right lures. You got to get the right tide. We couldn't get tide right last year at all. Yeah. Was it incoming? Was it outgoing? Like, we didn't know. Yeah. So we would stay all day, figure it out. Yeah. And then we'd forget the next week what tide it was. But yeah, I mean, it's fun doing that too. It's fun catching fish, but it's also fun finding the fish.
Yeah. No less than $20,000 of gas from when you start boating to when you find the fish.
You guys are like, it's going to be soon enough before you get a boat. And I'm like, I'm buying a boat? I see what you guys go through. I'm not getting a boat.
Yeah.
I'll just get a truck big enough to tow your boat, and then that will be
we can split it.
Exactly.
Well,
yeah. I mean, I appreciate this. And when you asked me, I was humbled that you asked me to do it, and of course I wanted to be on it. But
I was humbled. Then you said yes.
Then you told me, like, I want to do it off of your story, and I thought, how can we tie it all together? But I mean, fishing's my life.
Yeah.
I just got 3 fish tattooed on my ribs. I just got when I was in Key West. The only thing I bought for myself in Key West was a tuna necklace.
Yeah.
My entire wardrobe is just fishing stuff. That's my life.
You're part of the community, man.
It's my life, and I just ordered some stuff from this guy, and he threw
Pure Lure. You can give him a plug.
Pure Lure. Brendan, go see him in West Ocean City. His clothes are awesome. He actually just made
there?
155.
155.
He just made a rockfish shirt. Most of his stuff is pelagic fish, and he made the new one special? Is a rockfish. Yeah. And I told him you need to make it in the sun shirt.
Yeah.
And but yeah, so
sun shirts aren't good for fat people. So
no, they're not. They're not good for skinny people either.
Yeah.
I could never wear them ever before.
Yeah.
But he threw in the sticker, and it says, "I'd rather be offshore," and that just sums up my life. Like, I look at Frank. Frank runs a business. Frank's got like 5 guys, but Frank's fishing 6 days a week. He still has a successful business. Yeah. I want to be Frank.
Did he?
I want to be Frank.
Let me ask this question, since you keep bringing Frank up, and I'll edit this out if Frank doesn't want it in here. Did he paint a house black?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
But here's the thing. So, and doing this myself.
I'm thinking of the HVAC bill.
Well, I mean, yeah. But doing this myself, it's you do what they want, what the customer wants.
Yeah.
I don't need to like it. But when people ask me, what do you think about this color? I don't give my opinion because, and I can guarantee you, if the lady asked Frank's opinion, he'd be like, don't paint your house black.
Yeah.
But someone wants to pay you to do something.
You're going to do it.
You're going to do it. But yes,
Yeah.
Frank did paint a house black.
I was gonna say I know his company's very reputable and it was probably a good paint job, but I was just like the color black.
Yeah.
Can you imagine the cooling bill for that?
Oh yeah. And it went from a very light color to black. I bet the neighbors are loving that too.
Oh man,
It's mostly the sides and the back of the house. So
good Lord.
But yeah.
So, well, I know you said you were humbled. I'm humbled with everybody who comes on here, everybody who's willing. Like I said, I don't like leaving my house much other than fishing. And the resounding yeses I've had, I've lined up 6 podcasts in April, this being the 3rd. And the fact that people are willing, once again, going back to this loving fishing community, that people are willing to drive. You drove an hour to come up here and sit in the man cave or the fish cave and sit down and talk to me for an hour. And I really appreciate it. You even dealt with a reschedule with me because I'm still new and struggling with the editing process here, which
it's not a problem at all.
Which is insane. So I really appreciate it, dude. We're gonna do a lot of fishing this year, and like I said, just consider podcast number 2 booked with me, you and Steve. After our trip, I'm really hoping we catch fish. I'll put together a video.
We will,
and we'll come back up here and we'll have Steve sit here, right in the middle. He can have the whole side here because he's a big dude. And we'll pull it up on the projector and sit there and watch the video. And
cool.
That'd be really cool.
Yeah.
It's like that. Did you ever watch that show, Mystery Science Theater?
Yeah, you're going to have our shadows in front of it.
Exactly. So, all right, buddy. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.